The video
Traffic was fine.
I know. It's quite the opposite.
Ironic, I'm not leaving. Fucking traffic.
Hi, Barry.
Oh,
You were. I'm like, I don't know where he's at. You're there too.
I looked at it, wow.
Good morning. Good morning. The time is 9:11. I will now call to order the Central Virginia Transportation Authority meeting for Friday, January 31st, 2025. I'll ask Mr. Spoonhour to lead us in the pledge of allegiance.
He's right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Spoonhour. Ms. Scott.
Town of Ashland, Mr. Hodges.
Here.
Dr. McGraw. Charles City County, Mr. Atkins. Mr. Patterson. Chesterfield County, Mr. Carroll.
Here.
Goochland County, Mr. Spoonhour.
Here.
Mr. Winfrey.
Here.
Hanover County, Chair Davis.
Present.
Mr. Hudson. Henrico County, Vice Chair Nelson.
Here.
Newcastle County, Mr. Moyer.
Here.
Ms. Pearson. Powhatan County, Mr. Donati. Mr. Kinney. City of Richmond, Mayor Avila.
Here.
Thank you. Virginia House of Delegates, Delegate Cousins. Senate of Virginia, Senator Hashmi. Commonwealth Transportation Board, Mr. Davis.
Here.
Capital Region Airport Commission, Mr. Miller. Mr. Rutledge. GRTC, Ms. Adams.
Here.
Ms. Torres. RMTA, Ms. Dean. DRPT, Mr. Trogdon. Ms. Dubinsky. Here. DDOT, Mr. Britch. Mr. Totten.
Here.
Mr. Riblet.
Here.
Virginia Port Authority, Ms. Nelson. Here. Thank you. And Mr. Cross. Thank you. That concludes the roll call for attendance. We do have a quorum and one remote participant.
And if you let the record reflect that we do have a quorum, I'm going to do confirmation of members' participation remotely prior to welcome and introductions. We do have a member. Who is the member?
Barbara Nelson, Virginia Port Authority.
And as Ms. Nelson stated, appropriate reasons for remote participation.
Ms. Nelson is, her primary residence is more than 60 miles from the meeting location, and that is for generally a reason if she participates remotely.
So the reason is remote participation for primary residents more than 50 miles. Ms. Nelson, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Thank you, ma'am. Are you requesting remote participation?
Yes, I am. Thank you for your consideration.
Yes, ma'am. Chair authorizes the vote. Is there a second? Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries. Well, welcome and happy new year. Thank everybody for being here. Finished up last year very, very strong and hope things are going to continue to move forward here in the new year with the General Assembly. And we've got a really good word from that. But anybody here have any welcomes that they want to share now before I introduce our new mayor? Mayor, thank you for being with us. It's a pleasure. Chet and I had an opportunity to meet with the mayor, talk about CVTA, very open for that and very responsive. And kind of an inaugural, so you had your inauguration, I had an inaugural event too. It's the first time I've ever gotten a parking ticket in the city of Richmond when I went down to meet with the mayor. Yeah, I tried everything, I first tried, I said, look, I was here to meet with Danny who? I tried to use his MD. I said, look, I had a doctor's appointment. It didn't work. So anyway, I just want to let you know that the Davis family is helping fund the city of Richmond. Let's put that in.
Appreciate it very much, Chair Davis.
Mayor, welcome. Please, love to hear some words.
Yeah, thank you. Great to be a part of this. I did not know much about CVTA before this, but after sitting with Chair Davis and Chet, and then obviously hearing from Dirana on our team, really thrilled about the formation of this, the way that it brings us together to really live into our regional identity and to find ways that we can work together for the good of the region. So happy to participate in that.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks for being here. Anything further from authority members? Seeing none, we'll move into consideration of amendments. Chair has none, Vice Chair stated none. Any committee members have any amendments to the agenda? Is there a motion to approve the agenda? We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion second in discussion. All those in favor, please indicate by
Aye.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda, we're gonna take these as a batch introduction, but we'll have two separate votes. First is November 15th, 2024 meeting minutes and December 5th, 2024 meeting minutes. And second, the any additions, deletions, or corrections? Have all committee members had an opportunity to read those and review? We'll take item 3A first. Is there a motion to approve November 15th, 2024 CVTA meeting minutes?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item. Is there a motion to approve the December 5th, 2024 meeting minutes for the CVTA?
So moved.
Motion?
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all for that. Next item, item number 4 is open public comment period. Open public comment period is a time where anyone who wishes to address the authority on any matter within the authority's purview is welcome to come forward. You have 5 minutes. We ask that you state your name or the entity that you represent. Is there anyone present or anyone online who wishes to make comments during the open public comment time? Seeing none, we will close comment time. Next item on the agenda is chair report. Most of what you'll hear from the chair is going to be as we work through the agenda. I don't have anything specific to draw attention to other than the action items and the information items that are already listed in the agenda. So unless anybody wants to do a Q&A and ask any questions, I'm open for that. Seeing none, we'll close that item. Next item, item number 6, the CVTA Executive Director's Report. Mr. Parsons.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There's 2 items on the agenda, and I do have a couple other points to make following, but the first one is 6A, titled the SPA framework for fall line trail wayfinding reimbursement. If you recall, back in, I believe, September, the authority took action relating to the working capital reserve strategy. Part of that action was to set aside 1.5 million from the interest income to be set aside for implementing the fall line wayfinding plan, which is essentially going to fund all of the signage and wayfinding markers for the entire corridor, the 43-mile corridor for the fall line. Following that action, staff began working with TAC, Finance Committee, and legal counsel to kind of put together an approach on how we would actually work through that process for getting the funds in the hands of the localities as the implementation goes into play. And we finally came down to a discussion that was very complex at first, and then it simplified as we talked about it more. We have an existing standard project agreement between every locality and CVTA. And the discussion ended up in the spot where that adopted SPA template can be perfectly useful for reimbursement for fall line wayfinding costs as well. Every locality has been given the budget number that was set up as part of the wayfinding plan. And now the next step is to establish a standard project agreement for fall line wayfinding specifically. Everybody is going to have one, the budget number, 2, a specific CVTA ID, which will be included in the SPA. And as signage and wayfinding is put into place, we will be able to use the same reimbursement process that has already been adopted and is underway for many of the other regionally funded projects for the CVTA. So we had originally expected that there would be action, but at this point, since we're using regularly adopted templates and procedures, this is more an information item for the authority so that you understand that that 1.5 million is now going to be in play and available for localities to use.
We've spoken on this earlier. Any questions, any comments on that informational item? Very well, thank you, Ms. Francis.
Next item, 6B, the bond validation schedule update. This is just a very short update. I spoke with Megan Martz-Gilland from Kaufman Knowles, and she informed me that working closely with our other financial advisor, PFM, they are coming up with, or they are developing the troves of information that will be necessary to file in court for the bond validation process. Once that information is to a reasonable point to bring it back to Finance Committee, that will be the next step, so that everybody on Finance gets a chance to review the package before it is then moved into the more complex legal process. Mr. Gregory, do you have anything else to add?
No, it's in process. We're working with bond counsel now to prepare those documents and get them in draft form that'll be suitable for your consideration and review prior to kicking off the official process as Chen described.
Great, thank you, Posted. Mr. Chair, just 3 other quick items.
Yes, sir.
We do have, I did want to introduce Lauren Shepard. She didn't know I was going to do this, but Lauren is the new Chief Finance and Administration Officer for Plan RVA, and I look forward to working very closely with her on a lot of the CVTA financial policies and procedures. We're going to dive into that over the next few months and make sure we are, as a staff and a finance committee, understanding of all of the requirements that are set up in the code and making sure we are following all the steps that are necessary. And I think it's going to be a great partnership between CVTA and Plan RVA to get all those things in order and make sure that we're all marching from the same beat. So, welcome, Lauren.
Lauren, welcome. We had an opportunity to meet Lauren the other day with the Plan RVA, the PDC Finance and Audit Committee. Now we're here at the CVTA. We will give you a book of acronyms. Roll through those. But thank you for being here. I am going to move into action item B. Two other items on that.
Yes.
Don't pause so much.
Okay.
Well, I wonder what you talk.
So the two other quick items, information items. Have been working closely with Delegate Cousins and Senator Hashmi over the past few weeks and going to General Assembly to follow. But House Bill 2234 and Senate Bill 1250. The Senate bill has passed out of the Senate. House bill is back reported from transportation unanimously. Both of those are related to CVTA being added to an existing statute releasing members and staff from personal liability. We may have discussed this at the Finance Committee at least, but both of those bills are moving very smoothly and we've received great support from our elected officials at General Assembly. So I'm looking forward to being able to report back or letting them report back when they come back to the success of those two actions. And then finally, your staff is very well aware of this, but Smart Skills 6, round 6 recommendations have come back from VDOT staff to the Commonwealth Transportation Board. Our region did extremely well. I had queued up a short snippet of the video from the CTB meeting that I was going to play this morning. I'm not going to do that in the interest of time, but I urge you to go back and look at that, where the regional partnerships in the Richmond region are highlighted by staff as one of the primary reasons why there was so much success in the applications this cycle. So the work that CVTA has done to leverage both local and regional CVTA dollars into these smart skill applications is recognized, and the state has recognized it, and it's a real blue ribbon for a model of success for how to navigate the rules and the processes that the Commonwealth has set up so that we can compete better as a region. So I just wanted to highlight that, and I'd be happy to share more information as more of it comes in.
And as far as the bills going through legislation, Senator Hashmi, Delegate Cousins, certainly helped with that. That I don't say it was an oversight on anybody's part, but we're being added in there just like Hampton Roads and the other authorities. And they actually brought in Senator Bagby, so they were very grateful. Made a few phone calls, a few emails back and forth. Both Senator Hashmi and Delegate Cousins spoke with me personally. We're happy to help work this through. So that provides us with some of the equality between the other authorities. So it is more than customary. It needed to be done through legislative action. So we're very grateful. And to the point about CTV, that Mr. Davis does a fine job. I think we're very fortunate to have him on Commonwealth Transportation Board, and just thanks for everything that you're doing over there, actually. Y'all guys are, y'all are working hard. Y'all are carrying some pretty heavy packs through the desert, no question. So very
Thank you,
thankful.
Mr. Chair. If I may just
Absolutely,
to follow up on what Jeff was talking about. So I have met with Dale and Mark, and special thanks to Dale and Mark and their team for going through these applications. 65 applications in the Richmond region, nearly double any other region that's out there. Of the 9 regions, we win the day there. And it's a lot of thanks to the wisdom of this board, selecting the right projects, putting the leverage down, and their collective team processing and make sure these projects don't get screened out or they don't get kicked out for lack of information or the correct information going into the application. So 65 scored projects for the Richmond region. They're all right here. Smile work. So I've met with the team, and we're starting to go through those through the staff selected funding scenario to see what's what, see who prevailed. But just a great showing all in all for the Richmond region. So 65 out of 270 projects in the Smart Scale queue. So that was a big win for Richmond, having that many scored. Additionally, as far as funding goes, $338 million, nearly 3 times the amount of any other district. So you think 9 districts, that percentage is, 10, 11%, 12% success rate. Well, we've got 1/3 of the funding that's essentially coming to Richmond. So my hat's off to CVTA for putting that leverage on these projects to help them score really well so that they get recommended in the funding scenario. So well done job there. So
Thank you for your leadership. If we could pull the numbers from this year when they come out compared to when Mr. Carroll was the chair. If they look better this year, I'd like to have a better presentation on the numbers. But thank you. A lot of the groundwork that's been laid from the previous leadership of this authority, and we talked about this at our annual meeting, is why we're here where we are now. And we're on a good ride. Having great representation over there at CTV means everything. So it's great to report back when you have an authority that was created through a legislative action that actually works. And I've said that it's the folks sitting around this table that make that happen. And that's really important to report back, I think, to the folks that we're ultimately accountable to, which is the citizens of the Commonwealth, and for us, certainly here in this region. So thank you all for that.
Mr. Chair.
Certainly, sir.
Oh,
I should not.
but I think those projects were actually submitted when I was chair of the board.
Nuances, semantics.
Just saying.
Strike that from the record. Okay, so as we move into our action items, I did want to just bring your attention to. So on page 15 of your agenda, you will see the regional project selection and allocation framework. That's the proposed revisions here, January 31st, 2025. I was told that Mr. Hodges wanted to see kind of a red line edition, which I think is great to show.
It's always nice to know what you're doing.
No question. So we've made those available as well. So you have the finished product in your distributed agenda, and then you have the red line edition here. If there's anybody that has any questions, but thank you, Mr. Hodges, and staff made those available. It's a great thing to bring up. Before we open this up, I do want to thank Barb and all the folks who worked on this, particularly the tax. I mean, without the technical advisory committee, these types of things couldn't happen. And as you can see, this is a pretty heavy document. There was a lot of work that was done. And a lot of input from around this table, and certainly staff took that, got it put together to what we believe reflects the changes and the updates and the revisions that were mandated by the authority. So we're very thankful to have this. Anybody have any questions before I open it up for a presentation by Mr. Parsons?
Another question, but I did want to thank, if I may,
Certainly.
Mr. Parsons for his response and summary. I thought that was very helpful. Thank you.
Very well, Mr. Parsons.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I do have a couple slides on the screen for everyone following along remotely, but this is reflective of the information that's contained in the staff report that was distributed before the meeting started. This, as the chair mentioned, the regional project selection and allocation framework is something that we have had in place since the beginning of the organization. It really guides the process for application, selection, and allocation of funding from the 35% regional pot. So this is a major document that the TAC has ownership of. They have spent countless hours over the past year analyzing the results of the last round of funding, round 3. Some positive impacts, negative impacts, places to grow and to improve the framework. And that is part of the process. Is following each regional round, the framework may be adjusted, tweaked, improved as needed to better reflect the priorities of the region. So I just wanted to go briefly over some major categories of changes. This reflects the red line, the changes that are in there, but tries to group it into major categories. One thing to note, the Central Virginia Transportation Fund, the CVTF, is where all of the tax revenues are deposited before the authority makes the decisions on allocation. So as of December of 2024, projections estimate total CVTF revenues of $247 million per year, or $1.48 billion between 2025 and 2030. This is reflective of that last round of projections that we received from the state in late December. 35% of their revenue, or $518 million, is set aside for regionally significant projects. That's the regional fund that the framework designates. The project selection allocation framework provides the required tool that is set up in the state code to assist the CVTA in making funding decisions. And then from time to time, as I mentioned, CVTA reviews and updates the framework to best responds to lessons learned and to remain flexible for upcoming opportunities. So the first grouping of changes is dealing with off-cycle funding requests. Right now, we are on a 2-year cycle. So our next round of regional funding, round 4, will start up with applications later this coming summer. And then that round will run for 2 years. It is now set up on that 2-year cycle to alternate with the Smart Scale program. The Smart Scale will be in year 1, CVTA regional will be year 2, back and forth. Off-cycle requests will be considered on a case-by-case basis. There is no set schedule for consideration of off-cycle requests. Those requests will be submitted to the executive director with all of the proper data sets and details and information. And then once that package is validated by me, it will be sent to TAC for review. Funding availability will be verified by staff and ranking against the previous funding scenario. And then TAC would take all of that information, discuss it in detail, and make a recommendation to the authority on the proper action to take. So this information was not previously in the framework, and there was not discussion necessary to require the addition of this clarity for what do we do in an off-cycle year if there's an emergency, if there's a funding shortage that is dependent on, you know, a more immediate answer for grant opportunities or other types of things.
Couple clarifying question. So, is there a funding cycle every year or not necessarily?
No, sir, it's every 2 years
Every
now.
2 years,
Yes.
okay. And then an off-cycle request would be something that comes up on the in-between, but is it looking at funds that have been unspent or a project that's been pushed down the road, and so there's some change in what's scoped out for the next few years?
I think the specificity of that is vague intentionally, so that there are opportunities for all kinds of what if scenarios. I think one thing that TAC discussed and clarify if you need to, was, you know, what if a project has funding already applied as a leverage, for example, so there's still a shortfall. And you have an opportunity in an off year to access a federal grant program that has a deadline. There could be a consideration for off-cycle funding that would help satisfy the necessity of meeting that federal grant deadline, if there's additional dollars needed.
Yeah.
That was one discussion point, but that's not limited to.
Sure.
And in a case like that, Mayor, if in that scenario, that would immediately receive a priority for consideration, maybe not for further approval to say, when these additional funds became available, it would absolutely be brought back in off cycle because of those funds, explain this is what's happened and why we may need to move on that for that reason. So obviously, if the federal funds came in as an example, what Mr. Parsons said, it could alleviate money that was already allocated. So that it would be very important. We would get that back to the authority rather quickly in a scenario like that. So we don't do a funding cycle and close the books and open it back up in 2 years. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, perfect,
Okay,
thank you.
Okay, next grouping was related to project scoring and ranking, and our experience through the first 3 rounds of regional applications has been that the evaluation of transit, specifically transit project applications, is not as sustainable using the current data sets and metrics that we've adopted. Up through the first 3 rounds, transit was evaluated using the same metrics that highway was evaluated with. And not those data sets are not always available and may not reflect the impact of the transit improvement to a sufficient manner to illustrate the impact of the region. So the recommendation now is that transit scoring will use a modified set of criteria that include both a modified safety goal. You can't evaluate transit safety the same as you would highway safety, just based on the nature of the method of moving people. And an additional goal assessing the connectivity of a transit project to the adopted activity centers. So you can imagine with the TPO establishes activity centers as part of the long range plan, where major things are happening around the region. I believe there's 15 to 20 of them right now. So this goal would assess the connectivity of the transit project. The modified safety goal assesses crash frequency reduction, safe access to transit, and overlap with adopted VDOT pedestrian safety action plan orders. So again, additional detail that really better reflects the impact of the transit project on the region outside of traditional highway scoring. The next item is something that this authority is very familiar with, the deallocation of funding. One of CVTA's primary methods to support project development is to provide matching funds. Leveraging is the other way to say that. Sometimes those attempts are not successful. So if this, for example, the drafts round 6 scenarios, if a project received leveraging funds from the regional CVTA pot, but the smart scale application that leveraged those dollars was not recommended for approval and may not receive approval later this year, then that would indicate that some additional thought needs to go into how that funding package is developed. Previously, there was no way to address, well, what if what if over time a project just doesn't shape up to receive the funding that is desired for whatever reason that might be. You know, the leveraging isn't enough, the project just isn't scoped well, you know, details aren't there, whatever that might be. So what we've done in the framework is provide the method and the methodology for the allocation of funding from projects that don't meet criteria to remain eligible. Previously, this authority took action to adopt the policy, the deallocation policy. And what this action in the framework does is recognize that policy and make reference to it in terms of the project selection process. So it really just connects the dots on the policy that has been adopted by the authority and the project application and selection process. And then the final thing, which I think is a big one, this is not reflected in the language of the framework, but we have identified through previous cycles that there wasn't enough flexibility in the timeline to allow for adequate feedback and update of applications. This is sometimes as much an art as it is a science, and as applications move through the evaluation process, there's sometimes a need from time to time to change the funding request or update project details or do other things that make the project score better or improve the standing to reflect the needs of the applicant. So what we've done is revise that entire process, and that is actually on the agenda later on this morning to approve the next round process. But it starts the application window earlier, so July 1 would be the opening for the applications this time around. I believe round 3, it was September, was when the applications were open, so this gives another month and a half. And then the same process, but just extending the timeline, processing by the staff and consultants, scoring review, TAC member reviews. And then we do have in the November, December timeframe, some additional weeks built in for adjustment by applicants to take all the information once cost estimates are developed and verified and project details are understood to make changes and revisions before any recommendations come out of TAC. We have public review January, February, and then the public hearing and action by this body would be February, March. So we think that this additional flexibility by adding maybe 2 months total to the process provides that feedback loop so that we can have a better product at the end and make better recommendations for the public to review at the outset.
Thank you, Mr. Parsons. Any questions or comments from the board members?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, please.
Just really quick, noting back to the off-cycle request, nothing in it really has anything in terms of like how far in advance you may need requests for something if there's a due date or something. I know that my experience is that sometimes we've had requests that has had a level of urgency that's not going to respect the amount of time that needs to be reviewed. So I would just perhaps recommend that if any requests are being submitted to you, that they would be given at least a month or a 2-month window for you to go through and validate that request and so forth.
And thank you for bringing it up. It's well noted. I think referring back to my previous comment, speak to your point where we may not know when something comes in, we're gonna put a tacit priority level on that. And actually, I prefer not to set a framework of this many months because it may need to be making calls on the move, particularly if funding comes in. But you have my assurance, they will take priority in situations just like what you explained, for that purpose of making sure that we're fluid and that we're actively able to get staff on that quickly, secure the funding, and then communicate with the authorities. So thank you for bringing it up. Point well made. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Sure. I just want to point out to the group that I appreciate, number one, I appreciate the changes that were made to the entire document. But I think it's important for the group to understand a couple of things. One, I've brought into question the numbers that were used in this original document on page 2 of the actual counts for the localities for population. in reviewing when the census data came out and reviewing when we actually adopted the policy, my personal opinion is, and it's just my own personal opinion right now, that we erred in using the numbers from a 2015 census when we should have used we used the Weldon Cooper numbers from the 2015 when we should have used the census data that actually came out in April of 2020. But that being said, we're gonna have to re-adopt this policy later in the year because we will be updating those numbers because by our bylaws and by state code, every 5 years it has to be revisited. We're in the 5th year now, moving into July when we get there. And just as an example, most recent Weldon Cooper numbers, we're talking about city of Richmond. You know, when you look at this document, it says Richmond's 217,000. Weldon Cooper now estimates Richmond, and this is from an article I received yesterday, 233,039, and actually New Kent was the fastest growing increase in population in the region at 16.8% from 20,000 in 2015 to 26,808. So those numbers will be adjusted later on in the year when we bring this forward for reconsideration. But I just think it's important to understand that our Richmond region has grown in population tremendously across the board. And I just want to make sure that when we update this in the future, we have the accurate numbers as part of this. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Great comments. Thank you, sir. Anything further? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the regional project selection and allocation framework as presented? So moved by Mr. Spoonhour. Is there a second? We have a second. Is there any further discussion?
I'm sorry, Mr.
Mr. Moyer. Okay. Any further discussion?
The numbers, the new updated number.
What'd you say?
Sure. Discussion.
Oh, no.
Page 2. The official discussion.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I'll get him what he needs, so we vote whenever you're ready.
Very well. Hearing nothing further. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And with that, the motion has carried. We published the vote. We are going to do a roll call on this as it involves, obviously, yes. Ms. Scott.
Mr. Hodges,
Aye.
Mr. Carroll,
Aye.
Mr. Spoonhour,
Yes.
Chair Davis,
Aye.
Vice Chair Nelson,
Aye.
Mr. Moyer,
Aye. I'll take the change.
Mayor Avila,
Aye.
and Avula, I'm sorry. Mr. Davis,
Aye.
thank you. That motion carries.
Hey, bear with me. Thank you. The next item on the agenda, B2, is a GRTC annual certification. Many of you may note that annual certifications have all come in, and it looks as if GRTC has not presented theirs. Keep in mind, they're on the federal schedule as it relates to their budget based on the Fed FY. So they're not deficient, they're not behind, everything is good to go. They're just not on the July 1 fiscal year that we are. They are on the Fed fiscal year. So with that, Mr. Parsons.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. The package from GRTC was submitted properly and has been reviewed. It starts on page 36 of the agenda packet with the signed certification page that you are all very familiar with. And then it also includes the supporting documentation as well as the audit. So that is there. As I mentioned, the package is complete and the requested action is a motion to approve the GRTC annual certification report.
Any questions? Anything from GRTC? Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it. With that, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
I have a motion. Is there a second? We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Mr. Please call the roll.
Mr. Hodges.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Spoonhour.
Aye.
Chair Davis,
Aye.
Vice Chair Nelson,
Aye.
Mr. Moyer,
Aye.
Mayor Avula,
Aye.
and Mr. Davis.
Aye.
Thank you. That motion carries.
Very well. Page 89 of your agenda packet, it's going to be the round 4 applications as it relates to the process, Mr. Parsons.
Thank you. As I just mentioned in the framework discussion, this document on page 89, the flow chart with the road down the middle of it, is reflective of that expanded project application cycle for round 4 of our regional project process. It starts in June, ends in February, and this infographic includes all of the major milestones for both staff, TAC, finance, and the full authority. So this is in front of you for requested action to approve the CVTA round 4 application process. Following this action, staff and localities and VDOT will be using this to guide our steps in undertaking round 4 regional funding.
Any questions? I think you have a lot of questions. Great. Okay, wonderful. Thanks for everybody's hard work on that. Is there a motion to approve the CVTA round 4 application process?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. We have a motion, a second by the mayor. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ms. Scott?
Mr. Hodges?
Aye.
Mr. Carroll?
Aye.
Mr. Spoonhour?
Aye.
Chair Davis?
Aye.
Vice Chair Nelson?
Aye.
Mr. Moyer?
Aye.
Mayor Lula?
Aye.
And Mr. Davis?
Aye.
Thank you. That motion carries.
And that motion carries. Okay, so we're gonna move into our PFM Financial Advisory Services for bond validation process. This is an action item. We have correspondence from PFM. We're gonna talk about this just a little bit. There's some background on this. Folks have asked a number of questions, and we believe we've gotten all the information available to present. This is just the carryover to how the process will work. And we do have some authority that needs to be given if we are to have an affirmative vote and contract for services. Mr. Parsons.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is actually task order number 2 for PFM, so it's following an established process. The letter, which is a handout, outlines the tasks that PFM would perform as part of this task order. This is all related to the bond validation proceeding. And as I mentioned earlier, talking about the schedule, PFM is working with our bond counsel to develop all of the materials, including the authorizing resolution, all documentation, ordinances, and bond documents relating to the bond validation suit. So the request here for task order 2 is to approve and sign off on a fee range to cover the cost for all of the development of those package materials. The range is listed in the letter, and I have reviewed with staff the administrative and operating budget. We do have the capability of absorbing these costs. I did ask for validation from Ms. Choi relating to the range, and her expectation is that it would be the low end of the range in cost, but it's hard to specify because you can't know ahead of time how many challenges or what type of work might appear when it's actually introduced in court. So that's the reason for approving the range. But regardless, we do have budget to cover these costs, and my understanding and my feeling is that it's a necessary action to take so that we do this the right way and get through all the court proceedings in the very efficient and timely manner.
Very well. So one of the questions that I had was, I saw the range and from 30 to 60, and so that's 100% diff if my marine math works well. We don't know what may transpire with the lawyers going in, what might happen in court. So the idea is very easy process. If there's not a lot of feedback coming from the bench, questions, not a lot of the legal work that needs to be brought in, a lot of financial work needs to be brought in. for additional information to the courts. It'll probably be on the 30,000 end. If it's more robust, more information comes back that needs from the bench says you need to provide these types of things, then obviously there's going to be an administrative cost to that. So that's why the range is what it is. But they do think it'll be closer to the $30,000 range. But that said, we're going to vote on it for the range from 30 to 60. Should that happen, will be covered. Any questions on that? Very well. Is there a motion to approve the proposed PFM Task Order 2 for financial advisory services for bond validation process? Move. We have a motion by Mr. Carroll. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Chair. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ms. Scott?
Mr. Hodges.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Spoonhour.
Aye.
Chair Davis.
Aye.
Vice Chair Nelson.
Aye.
Mr. Moyer.
Aye.
Mayor Abdullah.
Aye.
Mr. Davis.
Aye.
Motion carries. Sorry, I will get it.
You will get it. It's great.
Very well. And we will get that signed and delivered today. Number 5, working capital reserve study. Want to thank everybody who's worked on this. Been a heavy lift. Those who worked with the finance committee did a great job. The previous chairs certainly chairs moving on this. So, Mr. Parsons, if you'll bring that forward, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Page 90 is the staff report relating to the working capital reserve strategy. Our current financial policies provide for a working capital reserve equal to at least 3 months of the budgeted annual regional CVTA funds. The working capital reserve requirement right now is equal to approximately $18 million, which is the baseline. This amount will fluctuate slightly each year, corresponding to the latest round of revenue estimates received by the CVTA. So this all started as we identified in the financial reporting our interest income earnings at the end of fiscal year 24, so June of 2024. CVTA had approximately 11.6 million in investment interest earnings, which I think rightfully so, the finance committee and the full authority started these discussions about, well, what's the best use and highest utility for these earnings. So at its September 27th meeting, the authority directed the allocation of that 11.6 million as follows: 1.5 million to fund the wayfinding implementation, which we have discussed. Allocate 5.05 million to initially fund the working capital reserve, and then an additional 5.05 million to fund regional projects to be determined. So following that discussion and action, the request was made for essentially a validation check with our auditor to see if there were any issues identified with taking an action like this. They reviewed, PB Mayors reviewed the recommended approach and indicated that there were no issues with the approach and it does not foresee future audit concerns. So this staff report kind of takes that last step and discusses an actual framework for action by the authority for completing the development of the working capital reserve and maintaining its balance over time. The authority delegates to the finance committee the ability to provide direction to the executive director on oversight of the working capital reserve and may modify or adjust the funding strategy as needed with regular reports to the finance committee and full board included in the monthly financial reporting and as part of the annual budget process. So monthly tasks: the executive director shall work with the CVTA fiscal agent to include additional data points in the financial reporting and investment report outlining the current status of A, the monthly regional investment earnings contribution to the working capital reserve, B, a new line item in the financial report showing the working capital reserve as a unique funding recipient, and C, the overall impact of the monthly investment to the bottom line of the working capital reserve. And then annually, By June 30th of each year, staff will provide an update on the success of the working capital reserve funding strategy and any recommendations necessary to ensure its long-term impact. Finance Committee did discuss this approach in detail and the importance of monthly reporting for tracking purposes. It was noted by the committee that because the money is left in the investment pool, it could increase or decrease. And the purpose of the monthly reporting is so that changes in the strategy can be made when necessary. Finance Committee voted to recommend approval of the working capital reserve strategy as presented. And that action is before you today with a motion to recommend approval of the working capital reserve strategy as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Parsons. It does come with a recommendation from the Finance Committee. Mr. Spoonhour, do you have any comments, sir?
No, Mr. Parsons covered it.
Thank you so much. Is there a motion to approve the working capital reserve strategy?
So moved.
Motion, is there a second? Second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Madam Clerk?
Mr. Hodges.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll. Mr. Spoonhour.
Aye.
Chair Davis.
Aye.
Vice Chair Nelson. Mr. Moyer. Mayor Avula.
Aye.
And Mr. Davis.
Aye.
Very well. Motion passed. With the proper pronunciation. All right, very well. I'm gonna batch these together. We'll go through any comments. But some of these are gonna be the CVTA Finance Committee update. So we have an A and a B. I'll start with the chair's report. Chair Spoonhour.
Thank you. I'll keep this short. We did not meet last month, so I'll be passing on to item B for you, Mr. Chair.
Very well. Any questions for Mr. Spoonhour or the committee? Seeing none, we'll go to 1B on the report, Mr. Parsons.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Things continue to perform very well. The page 92 is the tax collections and allocations for the year. As you know, it's on a 3-month delay for reporting purposes, but this is my understanding of where the working capital reserve information will be presented. So we'll work with the fiscal agent to modify this reporting page itself to show how the working capital reserve is performing over time. And my hope is that'll be on next month's report, crossing my fingers. I really don't have additional information to share. The investment report for November is on page 93 and continues to show well, considering the atmosphere and the climate of the day. I would, Mr. Vice Chair, I would entertain any questions if there are any. Otherwise, I'd recommend moving on to the TAC report.
Sure. Questions? Anybody else? Questions?
No question.
All right. Where's the chair?
Ms. Smith.
Next.
Good morning.
Morning.
The TAC met in December and January with our primary focus being on the revisions to the framework document that we just mentioned on. We also discussed the $5 million in interest earnings set aside for regional projects. The group felt it would be good to wait till the smart scale funding scenario was released for considering recommendations. Now that that's available, we'll be asking TAC members for projects to consider. The Fall Line Trail Working Group met in December and discussed options to get the remaining sections of trails funded. Most of the discussion was about federal grants, like reconnecting communities and RAISE. We also talked about state sources and other federal sources like transportation alternatives that flows through this organization. We discussed potential sources for a dedicated maintenance fund. It's our understanding with trails that VDOT maintains now, there's really not a specific source of the maintenance dollars, but as major maintenance projects come up, funding is allocated towards those projects. Did I get that right? Okay, sorry.
Yeah, we do receive an allocation in our annual maintenance budget for the capital trail.
Oh, great.
Yeah, so we do receive that, so. I don't know
Okay,
where that generated from, but we do have an allocation we receive every year.
okay. We also talked about other opportunities to leverage the economic development that we expect to be generated along the trail, to establish a maintenance fund source. So that's a little bit more creative. That's all I have. Do you have any questions?
Any questions? Very well. Do you have any closing comments, Mr. Parsons?
No, sir. I'm sorry.
Yo, sorry. Yeah, Perry, please. Thank you, Ms. Miller.
Is there an estimated budget on the maintenance activities? My understanding is that it's gonna be, funds gonna be generated from the economic development for that.
Oh, that was just an idea of how we could do that, but Plan RVA put together a report. And I think the estimate was 150 million or 150,000 a year.
I believe that's right.
So we put, yeah, that was published in the PDC, okay? Anything further? Thank you, Mr. Miller. Anything further? Very well. Any closing comments, Mr. Parsons?
No, sir. Ms. Smith went ahead and did the report, so we can go out of business now.
So with that, we have our agency reports. We have Plan RVA and TPO, and our dual executive director is here. Anything, Ms. Schickel?
What's our?
Anything to add verbally?
Nothing to add.
Thank you very much. Any questions from Ms. Schickel? Very well. CVTA members, floor is open. Anything from authority members? Mr. Carroll?
Sure. I want to recognize that, you know, Perry is a member of this board representing the airport. I sit on the airport commission, and we are working together regionally, and I think it's important to bring it up to look at how the airport fits into the grander scheme of our entire Metro Richmond area. And that's something that we're going to be working together with his leadership on to work with various organizations, including this one. And so I hope in the future, as some of those new ideas come forward, Perry will be bringing them here to share it with the CVTA. And it's really about, I mean, if you talk about the numbers that I talked about earlier and how much the population has increased here in the Richmond metro area and all of our jurisdictions, and our airport is servicing all that. And one of the things that, I mean, he certainly could speak better to it than I can, is that we've seen enplanements go up on how many people are actually utilizing the airport for a variety of different reasons, and cargo has gone up over time from a shipping standpoint. And so we're gonna be working on that together, and I just wanted to bring that forward so because some of us, actually, I think probably you and I are the only one who's in this group that served on that, so. And right here.
Yes,
as well.
Vice Chair Nelson?
No, I agree with everything Mr. Carroll said. We're working on some international things, and man, we got a lot going on at the airport, so I think any way we can further engage all of the resources we have in the region, regardless of what they are. I mean, PRTC, et cetera.
I did fail to mention that it isn't in Rickow County.
Yeah, we have two regional airports, but the international airport is in.
I gave you credit.
Look, very appropriate comments and very timely, you know, at the Greater Richmond Partnership, we're talking about a number of different things, and Mr. Ucrop is obviously advocating very strongly, particularly when we have site visits. So to Mr. Carroll's point, to Vice Chair Nelson's point, the airport is a topic of conversation. I know with the new TSA upgrades, that's hitting the news everywhere. Folks are talking about that. Mr. Miller, some of our site selection folks are very happy about that, with the ability to get their teams through to other concourses. May seem kind of small in one sense, you know, to us, we're like, hey, that's a great upgrade, and we're proud of it, and we're happy for it, but it's demonstrable. It's a material aspect, and then all of the other things that go in to the daily operations, making sure things are going well, are are discussed at other regional bodies. And again, sitting on the board of GRP, we're talking about that. A lot of our site selection folks are very happy, and we're working on our strategic plan. As you may know, we're rolling that out, and that was a part, Mr. Ucrop would like to see a whole dedicated section in our strategic plan to the airport, and we're gonna implement some of that certainly in the GRP plan. But as it relates to CVTA, to echo the comments of Vice Chair Nelson and Mr. Carroll, I wholly concur, and I thank everyone there on the Airport Commission who's doing a lot of labor there, so appreciate that. Anything further? Yes, sir, Mr. Morty.
Since we're talking about airports, New Kent has an airport also. But not, we're not international.
Yet.
But, yeah. We are making a valid effort to try to use the model that Hanover has with the air park and be able to increase in economic development. Because we have a lot of people coming in for site visits too, that, the clean airspace around New Kent has the ability for people to come in and out without having to deal with the Richmond Airport. Also, we're gonna be doubling the number of hangars that we have and redoing the hangars that we do have. And so New Kent itself owns the airport. And when we talk to our county administrator, Rodney, we always ask him for more and more projects for the airport because the FAA pays for 96%, state pays for 3%, and we pay for 1%. So we would
refer to as a sweet deal.
Yeah. Now, and to hold that back is if we would ever sell it, all that money's got to go back to the Fed. So don't count on us selling it. But thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Mr. Swinhour.
Yeah, in the tradition of our original chair, Mr. Thornton, I wanted to give out some metaphorical flowers to this group. I remember last year driving down 64 and seeing the work that's being done there that Ms. Page had done. And I can remember feeling a little bit of a sense of pride that, I had a little bit to do with that, maybe it was just a vote. So I wanted to share, because of the work that this board has done, just a couple weeks ago, we broke ground on the largest project in Goochland County history, a $600 million facility that's gonna employ 1,500 well-paying jobs. And that would not have been possible without the support of everybody in this to see fit to fund our Ashland Road project. So some metaphorical flowers to this group. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, yeah, it's interesting. We shared that with Mayor Abula when we first met, that this is one of the bodies where you can go back and show the deliverables to the constituency, the folks that we serve. And it was interesting. I was thinking about Mr. Davis the other day, that the things that y'all work on and then provide the support through the CTB. And then we're able to go out and actually show folks in Central Virginia and throughout the Commonwealth where we have an impact, exactly what happened when bodies took action and worked in a collaborative manner. So thank you for bringing that up, and congratulations on that, Mr. Swinhour. A huge win for y'all. Y'all's leadership out there certainly made that happen. So anything further? Yes, sir.
Mr. Davis, thank you. Just following on Mr. Spoonhour's comments, if you happen to see the last couple of meetings at the CTB, we were very fortunate to have received really responsive bidders for what we call segment B on I-64. So we now have executed a contract for the third segment. For memory, for those folks, segment A is currently under construction. It picks up at mile marker 205 and heads east. That segment will be completed in the summer of 2007. We have segment B, which is actually in James City County, but my staff, or the team staff in Richmond, is administering. That segment will be done in 2008. And then segment B, the one in the middle, we just executed a contract, so we received very favorable bids, and we'll see that be prosecuted pretty quickly here with completion in 2029. So as I always share, if you're going that way through Mr. Moyer's neighborhood, we ask you to slow down, give some space to the folks around you. Most of the work that impacts traffic is being done at night. However, I'm sure local law enforcement and the state police would encourage you to put your phone down for that 29-mile stretch, pay attention to the road, and you'll get where you need to go. Also, in the spirit of this body and the cooperation and collaboration that's happened over the years, we do expect to have what we call design build segment 1 for the Fall Line Trail. That's by Mr. Hodges' neighborhood down through your neighborhood, Mr. Davis, to the Chickahominy River. We do expect to have that completed this summer. So please stay tuned for further information on that. We're making great progress on the construction. And I know that progress on that work is something this body felt very passionately about when they provided some funding to go with it. So that's all I have, sir.
Thank you. That's a lot. That's a lot. Thank you so much for that. Anything further? Well, some folks in Hanover would say, mighty good stuff. Mighty good stuff. Anything further? Mr. Mayor, your inaugural meeting, any closing comments, sir?
Grateful for the warm welcome. Thank you, Janice, for working on the pronunciation. And really, that I've been around long enough to know that the script on regional collaboration hasn't always been great, but this is an incredible example. Really good regional work we're doing together. I'm proud to be a part of it.
Thank you for that reaffirmation.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hearing nothing further, the time is 10:16. We are adjourned.
Those numbers are pretty interesting up there.